where we left off. So far this is what we have, and this is what we are trying to build. Okay, so we've worked our way from step 1 all the way to step 50. Now let's continue with step 51. So for step 51, we want to start styling the section element, and the first thing we want to do is to give it a width of 80%, like so. And then we also want to use margins to center the section element. So for the margins, we want to give the top 0, right will have an auto, the bottom will have 10 pixels, and then the left will also have an auto. So what we are doing here is that the margin works in a clockwise direction. So the first value will be applied to the top, the second value will be applied to the right, third value will be applied to the bottom, and then fourth value will be applied to the left. So it's top, right, bottom, and left. It goes in a clockwise direction. All right, so the next thing we want to do is also add a max width. So ensure that the section element cannot be larger than 600 pixels. So now when I stretch the preview like this, you see that the width of the section keeps expanding, and we don't want that. We want to give it a limit, and the limit we are giving it is 600 pixels. Okay, so say max width and give it a limit of 600 pixels. Now once we are done, if we stretch it, it ceases to stretch once it hits the 600 mark. Okay, all right. Okay, so moving on, we want to replace the top margin of the H2 element with a 60 pixels of top padding. Okay, so first we want to replace the top margin, so we'll say margin top and give it a value of 0 so that there is no margin at all, and then we'll give it a padding top with a value of 60 pixels. All right. Now the next thing we want to do is to add padding to the top and left of info element. Okay, and then set the other values to 0. So we'll say info, and then we want to add padding top and left. So like I've said before, the way the padding and margin works is that they work in a clockwise direction. Okay, so padding, then we need 4 values. So first let me give 0 to all 4. So the first value is for the padding top, and in this case we want top and left to have a value. So there's the top, so let's give it a value of 10 pixels, and so top, right, bottom, and then left. So let's give this one also a value of 10 pixels. Now the rest, which is the right and the bottom, we are going to leave it as 0. All right, now moving on, we want to give the form row element. So first let's select the form row element, and then once we've selected it, we want to give it top margin and then left and right padding. So first let's work on top margin. So we'll say margin top, let's give it a value of let's say 10 pixels. Okay, and then let's also give it a left and right padding. So let's just say padding. Okay, so the top padding is going to be 0. As you can see here, the other padding should have a value of 0. So the top padding is going to be 0. The left and right is going to be, let's give it, let's say 10. Okay, so the way this is going to work is that the top and bottom will be 0. The first one will be applied to the top and bottom, and then the second value will be applied to the left and right. Then we want to increase the font size for all input elements. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is to say input. Let's give it a font size. And let's say 1.1 rem. Okay, your input should have a font size greater than 13 pixels. So let's just give it 14 pixels. Let's see if that works. Okay, so that works. So for step 55, to make the first section looks more inline, we want to target only the input element with info element. So the way we do that is to first target the input, and then we leave a space, and then we bring our dot notation info. Then we want to set the width and give it a value of 50%. Okay, next up we want to give it a left align, and the left align will have a value of, text align, not left align. So text align, which will have a value of left. Okay. You should either use info and input, or so info should have come first. Okay, my bad. So info like so, and then we leave a space. All right, so that works. Okay, so next let's look at target all the label elements with the info element. Okay, and then we want to set their width to 10%. So first, let's select all label elements, and then we'll bring a comma. Then we select all info elements, or all elements with the info class. Then we want to set their width, give it a value of 10%, sorry. And also make it so that they do not take up less than 55 pixels. Okay, so let's give it a minimum width of 55 pixels. Okay, this doesn't look right. Let's see. You should either use, so it wasn't the label element and info element, it was label element within info element. Okay, so in that case it should be like this. So info, you leave a space, and then you have your label element. All right. Now the next thing we want to do is to align the input boxes with each other. Okay, and we want to create a new rule set that's going to target all inputs and label elements. So we first select all the inputs, bring a space, and then select all the label elements as well. Now once we've selected the label element and the input element, within all input and label elements within an info element, and set the display property to inline block. So let's set the display property to inline block. But this isn't right. So create a new rule set that targets all the inputs and labels element within an info element. So let me try this if that will work. So say info input, and we'll say info label. Let's see if that works. Okay, you should give the label element a text align of right. Okay. Also align the label element text to the right. Let's see. Label text align and we give it a value of right. All right. Now let's focus on neatening the question blocks. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to select it like so, and then we're going to just set these CSS properties. Okay. Now for step 59, make the paragraph element appear as a higher priority with the following CSS properties. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is to have our P element selected like so. We give it a margin top, a padding left, and then a font size of 20 pixels. And finally, in this one, we are going to see it is useful to see the default border around filled elements during development. However, it might not be the style you want. Okay, so what we want to do is to remove the border and bottom on the question element. So question. So we want to remove the border. So border is going to be none. Okay, then we also want to remove the bottom padding. So we say padding bottom. Let's give it 0. All right. Yeah, so that's where we will end in this one, and then from the next one will be, which will be the last in this playlist, we are going to look at step 61 all the way to the end. So we're almost there. I think what we have left is to style these ones that we have below here.